Hi everyone, if you're watching a recording, do fast forward about a minute and a half here before we get started. Just making sure everything is up and running. I think everything's up and running today. It shows, on my side, it shows everything's connected. Okay, so it looks like Andy says Twitch is up, which is good. All right, let's see. Start up a chat window, see if I can follow along a little bit. It's not always great, but we try. Okay, there we go. There we go. So it looks like, it's from the beginning of doing this, there's always been like the ever changing orb. Every time we turn around, something changed. So it looks like what happened the other day, why Twitch and Facebook didn't happen, is because there was an update of some sort and we lost it. So like last week, there was an update to the programming I used to do this. And of course, that made a mess too. So that's sort of interesting. Okay, sorry about that. Lost my connection with Andy. Let's see if I can get him up and running. So if you're just joining us for the first time, I always have Andy in my ear telling me what's going on and telling me your comments. I can see some of your comments, but not all of them. I never see exactly who's making the comments. So if you do make a comment, Andy relays it to me. If you have any questions, do shout it out, and I will do my best to answer those questions. So it's 1 o'clock, so let's get started. Today is Wednesday, October 13th, and it is week 82, and it's UFO Wednesday. What is UFO Wednesday? It is unfinished objects. I've been asking viewers to send in their unfinished objects, and let's see what's going on with them and see if I could put an interpretation to their project. There's been each project has had its own challenge as to why they were never finished. So today we have Amy's project. She basically gave me a pile of stuff, right? And there's this beautiful, I have to show this to you guys because it's totally great. There's this beautiful gem gray tourmaline that came in the package, cushion cut. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? So this amazing green tourmaline, and that came with everything. Not very much instruction here as to what she was doing with it, except she was a little bit nervous about doing this, and this has been sitting in her arsenal for a while, and she's like, well, maybe you can do something with it. So I've been putting a lot of thought into this and trying to figure out how I want to approach this. So pretty much what we're going to do at some point, not necessarily today, but at some point, this is going to become a ring, and we're going to set the stone on top of it. Okay. So what makes me a little nervous about this project is it always makes me nervous when I'm working on someone else's material, because what if I destroy it? Well, I guess I could always replace it, right? Yeah. But I never think about it that way. Especially this one, it's still raw and nothing has been started with it. It's just been sitting there with a trepidatious owner. So in any case, but here I am. I'm a little nervous about it because I didn't want to ruin her material. Although now that I think about it, I could have just replaced it if I did. So that said, I was thinking, what am I going to do with this? Okay. And one of the things that she said to me why she didn't finish this project or didn't even approach this project is she was really a little bit unsure about the finishing of it and making sure and unsure how to get these ends to meet and for it to work. So what this is supposed to be, or what this will be, is it's going to be a ring that's decorated with some gallery wire. So I'm going to set that aside for now. Okay. Because I don't want to ruin, it's a really nice piece of metal, and I really don't want to ruin it. So we're going to set that aside, and here's some more metal that went with it. Yeah, again, don't want to ruin it. It is what it is, okay? And so what I went ahead and did was I decided, okay, how are we going to approach this? I'm going to go ahead and use some copper, just to test it and see if my theory is right. Because the thought is, if you were to do this, so what we're thinking is we're going to put gallery wire on here and make it into a ring band, right? So where my thinking goes, or there's two ways to approach this, in my head anyway. So one is you go ahead and solder this down flat, 2 pieces, bend the band, and boom, you have a ring. But her question to me was, I'm unclear on how to do it so that the ends of the gallery wire could come together in such a way that it becomes seamless. And you know what, honestly, with gallery wire, it is nearly, well, I say nearly impossible. No, it is really hard. It's not nearly impossible. It's just really hard to make that exact and make that work. So, you know, this is going to be close, but it's not going to be perfect. That is for sure. Perfect is hard, especially when you're dealing with sizing. Now, if sizing didn't matter and I was just making a ring, I could make this perfect, of course. But if sizing matters, it doesn't always work out. So let's see how we can make it work out. So what I went ahead and did is I went ahead and made a copper, a wide band, a copper band. And I'm going to put the gallery wire around it. So for me, it was really hard to think of it this way flat, and I decided that the best thing to do is to go ahead and make 3 rings and put them together. So how we're going to go forward here is I'm going to test this out in copper. I'm going to go through the process, and then depending on our timing, either this week or next week, I'll start the silver project and do it for reals, okay? So the copper, again, pretty straightforward. This is 18 gauge, I think, or 20 gauge copper that I made into a band, that's all. Okay, so then what I did was I took a piece of gallery wire. They're the same, okay? A piece of gallery wire, and I'm going to use the ring band as my form for sizing, just like so. And I'm just going to bend it around like so. And I'm going to trim it long, okay? So you can see it's right there, but I'm going to trim it like an extra piece right here. Okay, because this is going to give me room to play with, to see if I can get the ends together. Okay, and actually, wow, sort of interesting here. I think that this time this works well. So let's go this out a little bit. There you go. So I think this is going to work. So I'm sitting here eyeballing this. Okay, my cut here is not great. It's not really straight. So you can either file it or use a really nice flush cutter. And so here is this is how little I'm taking off, okay? So when I'm working with ends like this, I take off as little as possible. This takes a little bit of practice. You know, some people just can't cut straight. And if you're one of those people, cut it a little bit long, and it gives you a lot of working room. So now I'm going to go to the other side, and can it be perfect? It's pretty darn close. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it right there. You can mark it, but I see it. I see exactly where it needs to go. So we'll go ahead and trim it there. Okay. Let's see. My ring rolled away. And what I'm doing is I'm holding my gallery wire really snug to the band to make sure that I'm doing this correctly. Because I don't want this band to be the gallery wire to be too big. Okay, so there it is. It is indeed slightly off. So we're going to take a little bit off from each side to try to match that up. So instead of just cutting half of this off, then you have one half hanging out there, I'm going to take a little bit on each side to match up the design. And again, it's going to be really hard to match this up exactly. Okay, but we'll take a little bit off on this side. Again, it's just a slither, all right? Working a teeny weeny bit at a time. Always do this slowly. Why? Because you can't put the metal back. You can take it away, but you can't take it back. And you can see I'm a little teeny bit off, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my design and I'm going to assess which side should come off. So I can see my cut is not straight. I can file that, but I'm going to do it this way because this is a lot faster for me. Oh, didn't cut it straight. Okay, gonna have to file. There we go. And you see it's coming together really nicely. And the design is close. It's not perfect, but it's pretty darn close. Okay. I'm going to use my bow closing pliers as opposed to my bow opening pliers. And I'm going to gently pull this together. And you see I have, this is sort of pitched up like that. We're going to take out our flat nose and we're going to press it together. We're just trying to get that joint together and make it nice. A nice, seamless connection. Okay, again, you can see that's slightly off, so we're going to fix it. Like so. And I know it's sort of wonky, so I'm going to give it an extra little press on my bow closing pliers just to ensure that it stays together. You can see there. Actually, I'm going to double check and make sure this fits. Why do I feel like you're a little big? Are you? Again, just double checking everything. Because I want this to be the most snug fit that I could possibly get. And you see there's a tiny little gap in there. I'm feeling like it's a little big. Okay, so I'm going to take off a little bit more because I can. And I'm going to take it off on the other side. Can you see that? That tiny little bit. So if you're working on something like this, do it slowly. See how little? Do it slowly. Take your time. See, that's a nice cut. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so now it's feeling a little small, but I can still stretch it. You see how ever so slightly I'm off? I can stretch that tiny little bit, but I do see little gaps in there because it's not perfectly round. And now we're just going to move it together, like so. So we have a really nice, fine joint. All right, we'll put a little bit of hard solder on there. On the inside, because this is gallery wire, and you want to be able to disguise the joint, and you don't want your solder to bleed all over the design. Okay, just like that. Let me move this aside. I felt a shift. Okay, so I'm just leaning it up and it's right here. And we'll just solder this really gently. The solder fell. Oh well. Okay. Did not solder because the solder fell over. So I'm going to put a little tiny bit more solder on there. And I'm going to resolder that joint. Without pickling, I know. Y'all hate it when I do that, right? But it works. And it was still hot, so what's nice is when it's hot, it grabs the solder really nicely so it doesn't go everywhere. There it is. And notice how gently I'm torching this, because this is gallery wire and it's very thin and there's all these tiny little points that could melt very easily. So throw that in the pickle, we'll reshape it, stretch it a tiny little bit. In the meantime, I did make another ring, okay? And I'll show you the joint. This one, it worked out nicely, I thought. Not too bad, disguised well, okay? So we'll go ahead and put this on. We'll go ahead and put this on. It went on earlier. Goodness. Really? Well, a tight, remember I wanted a tight fit. I'm getting a tight fit. We'll try it from the other direction, see if I did any better. Oh, come on. Oh, there we go. Okay. So we're in. I'm going to move it all the way down. How about we just push it down like so? Good. Okay. So here, when I'm looking at it, I can see a lot of these points are moved up or not, are off the surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to gently put it into my mandrel and we're going to tap it down just to make sure that all the surfaces are touching the base, because I want the solder to run underneath all of that so that, oops, so that everything is soldered down, because these are lots of little points that have potential for snagging, right? So of course I would like them to be soldered if at all possible. Okay, there we go. All right, let's see the other one. By the way, if you have any questions, you can definitely shout out. Don't forget, Virtual Live Crafting is next week. You can still get in on the classes. Some of your kids might not arrive in time, but with the late order. However, you definitely can. Let's see if this fits in here. Still participate. Oh, you know what? I need to round this out. So you notice how it's not round? I'm going to go ahead and round it out first. Make my life easy. And again, I don't think I want to stretch this. I might need to, but I feel like that first round there, just checking, did not seem too small. So I also know that this cannot sit side by side like this. It's going to have to be staggered if it's going to fit in there. So I'll move it together. And you know, I think I'm going to put the seams at about the same junction. Okay, so I didn't think of something here. So because when I put this together before, all these little points sort of fit right into it itself, like teeth. And I'm wondering what's going to happen, that I have a double here. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work. See, things you got to think about. I could have gone to a wider band, but not quite the look I was trying to achieve. So you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to trim it down. So I'm going to trim this one just a little tiny bit to give myself some space. After all that banging, okay, we'll just pull it out just a little tiny bit. No one's ever going to notice this. Right? Right. Okay, where's my file? A little bit of a file here. Good. All right. So we're all fitting on the other ends. Let's see if it works as I go this way. And work my way around. Ooh. Okay, so here, definitely a little problem here. Okay. Move it down. I want it nice and flush to the ends here. You can use your tweezers to do this. I just happen to have the file next to me. So what's going on this week? On Friday, we will be doing a Zoom along. So if you want to join us, you can definitely join us for the Zoom along. All right. So to get this to fit, I'm going to have to trim this off just a little bit. You see, it's too tight in there. So I think I'm going to trim off each side, just a little tiny hair. Like so. But again, had I thought about that part of it, this is why we work through things. This is why you guys are watching, right? To see me figure out how I fix this stuff. Because, you know, classes are nice, but they're very well formulated, and it doesn't really go through, well, I do in my classes, but it doesn't discuss all the time the issues that you have along the way if things don't work out perfectly. Okay, there we go. I'm glad you thought this is a neat idea. This was actually, I can't take credit for it. This was thrown at me and said, here, you know, this is sort of where we're going with it, but I don't know what to do. So let's figure it out. I'm liking the two-tone thing though, I have to say. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm going to push down on this ring, and I'm going to get, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the edges even. So there was a comment that I could fit the two gallery wires together off the copper. Same problem. It's actually easier to do it this way so that I have something holding on to it to give me some leverage. Okay, so you can see, actually you can see the camera that some of these points are sitting up. So I'm going to gently, again, on that other side, push them down. Now this design would have been much better if, yeah, you see where it doesn't stagger properly? If this was a wider band and that they didn't have to exactly fit into each other. So unless you have perfect fits or the gallery wire comes together perfectly, this is not going to happen. But we're going to move forward because, again, this is going to be my test piece, and then I'm going to work on the real piece at some point here. All right, so we're just testing it to see if my theory is correct, because the final piece that we're going to do in silver, the two gallery wires will be separated out. Okay, so now I'm just feeling to make sure that all my little points are down. Okay, and here I want to make sure that this is nice and smooth. So I see a comment that you like the two-tone and how it will be great for the tourmaline, but we're not going to go two-tone for the tourmaline. We're going to go straight up silver to silver. Okay, yeah, it looks great on one side. On the other side, not so much, but that's okay. Again, it's a test piece, and this is what we do. And, you know, the other thing too is, why didn't I show you how to make the copper band? It's because I already had one. Remember, we're using, I have a lot of scrap, and I happen to have a copper band piece of scrap. All right, I'm gonna see what else I can do to make this a little bit better. I don't know, not much, but I'm digging it. Sort of fun for now. All right, let's solder this. How am I going to solder this? That's a question, because if I put paste on here, I really run the risk of it running all over the place. It is a dilemma how I want to do this. But I think I do want to do it from each side. This side and then the other side. Give me a second here, I'm thinking. Maybe I will do it with paste. But then there's a part of me that says maybe I should stick solder this. Let me grab some solder. Okay, so because I know gallery wire is going to, melt so easily, I think I'm going to go ahead and just go into easy solder. And I'm going to use I'm going to use wire solder to do this. Because I think I can control this a little bit better. That's the key. Okay, so I've got some gallery wire, some wire solder, and we'll do there and there. Again, just formulating in my head and processing through what I want to do. So I always encourage people when they're doing this, especially if you don't have much experience, just pretend like you're doing it without a torch and process through what your steps are to make sure that you know where you're going, so it's not like a big surprise, right? So we'll go ahead and put some flux on here. I like, actually I'm going to do it this way. There we go. I like green flux. This is what I was taught with, so this is what I like to use. But you can use any flux you want, because flux is flux, right? Well, any flux for silver. How's that? Okay, so we're heating. Get it really nice and hot. So the question was, wouldn't the best place for the gallery wire connection not be where your bezel cup is going to be so you can hide it? Yeah, that would be. However, for this, way too much. Hold on. Let me see if I can get that off. Yikes. Okay, so now we pick solder. Get that solder up. But for this one, this test one, it's going to just be a band. There we go. The green flux is, the name of the green flux is the same as what you're saying is your yellow flux. I call it green flux, I don't know why. There it goes. There we go. Okay, so there was quite a bit of solder that grabbed in there, and I'm hoping that it would have gone down into the piece. We'll flip it over, do it from this side. If I can pick up my solder on the side here. Okay. So it's AccuFlux is what it is what I use. There we go. There we go. See how it grabbed it? You totally see that. All right. So now I'm going to flip it over, and I want to do this center part to make sure that it has solder, and I don't feel like I got as much solder on this side as I did the other. I'm going to add a little bit more. And by the way, did you know that you can buy wire solder in different gauges? For me, I try to use a smaller gauge. It controls the amount of solder I've got going. Okay, so what I'm looking for right now is making sure that the solder flows to these points in here. So I'm heating in the center of the ring. to ask the solder to flow to that middle section, because I want to try to get maybe not all the points, at least some of the points down. So remember, I'm testing to see how it goes, and then I'm going to go to silver. That's the thing. Okay. I feel like it did. I feel like it did what it's supposed to do. Okay. So someone said that their AccuFlux is now a pale yellow and it's not as thick as the green flux. Okay, so this green flux is not thick at all. Look, it's just liquid. Okay, so it should be liquid. It's not a big deal. But if it's pale yellow, it's losing its efficacy, right? That's the right word. Okay, so here we are. Let's throw it in. Let's throw it in the pickle. So it does wear out like over time. Keep it in a dark place, and it'll save for a bit longer. Okay, so before I do anything else, I am actually going to move my solder here. I have a bunch of solder that I didn't use, and I'm just going to put it right into my container. All right, so I think this is a better way to go than to do it flat, because in my head I can't seem to figure out how to get the gallery wire ends to come together perfectly. So after you solder it flat, because a couple things that will happen is if you solder it flat, then you better make sure, if you want it to come together perfectly, you got to make sure that this one is exactly parallel to the one on the other side. If it is not, you'll be off. Everybody's going to be off. I mean, at least one of them will be off. You know, one side will be off. But it will definitely be easier when I do the silver one, because they're not going to be, what am I thinking, blended together like so. They're going to be far apart. So for me to make that perfect, those perfect ends, maybe not so necessary, right? So it can only be as perfect as it can be. But let's take a look here, coming out of the pickle. It's not bad. All right. And again, I knew that my solder was going to bleed onto the copper, and it would be really, you couldn't prevent it from looking silver. I would use silver solder. If I was doing this for real, I would use copper solder, that's for sure, and then patina this. That said, let's pull out a brass brush, and let's brush this, and then I'll zoom in, and we'll take a good look at it and see how it worked out. So on Friday, for everybody who's following, we're going to do a Zoom along, and I will be there, and I'm finishing up something anyway. Oh yeah, that's right, my tourmaline bracelet. I need to finish that once and for all. And, so if you have a free afternoon, 1 o'clock Eastern, we'll Zoom together. I'll post the link here this evening if you want to join along. It's just a nice time to gather and commune and talk about our projects or anything else we want to talk about, that kind of thing. And just have fun. Okay, so it's coming together. This is my scratch brush. It's brass. So I like using it for these tiny little spaces. All right, so of course it's a bit of a mess. To clean that up, we'll just sand it, no big deal. Again, it's a test piece, so I don't need to. But if you do sand it, make sure that you sand the inside here at a slight angle, or file it, sand it at a slight angle to make it really nice for wearing, okay? We'll definitely do that again when I go to do the silver. That said, see, some of it looks really, really, really nice, and then you can see where my pattern falls apart, which is okay, because again, we're doing a test. That said, let's take a look at the joint itself on the gallery wire. I just found it. It's right there. Zoom in just a little tiny bit more. So, I think the joint is pretty clean. It's not that awful. If this was all separated out so that they weren't nested, no one will ever really detect that. So let's look at the other one. This one could have been better. Could have been better. But again, something that we're going to have to deal with. Anyway, that said, haven't figured out what I'm doing with the bezel yet, but we'll figure it out as we go, or have the setting. The tourmaline, I just feel like it's going to have to be something really nice, because this piece of tourmaline was not inexpensive. Again, this is gem grade, and this is at least 8 millimeters, and you see how beautiful and how it glows even in the camera. You can see how it glows. So this is going to have to be a really great piece. I don't think I'm going to be using gallery wire on it because it's a little too much, but there's other material here that she has that maybe I can do something sort of fun with it. We'll see. I don't know. Stay tuned. Anyway, so that was a quick one today, a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be. I was anticipating much more of a challenge on this, but I think you get the idea. So if you were to do this, I'll go over the materials really quickly here. We have gallery wire. You need at least 6 inches if you're making a band, 3 on each one. And then you're going to need some stock. If you're using flat wire, flat sheet metal, you should use something between an 18 and a 20 gauge would be really nice. If you don't like your rings to be that heavy, then use a 20 gauge. 22 at the smallest if you want to go something even lighter. And remember to always size up depending on how wide your band is, okay? Because your sizing is in the middle of this band, not at the top or the bottom, meaning, what size did I make this? Oh, cool. Okay, so the 7 is right in the middle, and that's going to be my true size on this band. So just remember to do that too. All right, let's see what fits. Oh, check it out. I have a new ring. Huh, okay. I'll patina this and show you guys what it looks like next week. That said, hey, I'll see you on Friday. I'll be back on Monday with, what are we doing on Monday? Oh, another start from scrap. No clue what we're doing on Monday, but it's going to be another start from scrap. And Virtually Overcrafting starts next Wednesday, so we will not be back next Wednesday because we will be I and we, meaning the other instructors, the other 30 instructors, are going to be busy teaching. So don't miss out. You can still join us, especially on Wednesday when we're doing a full day of VEC shorts. They're 1-hour short classes, lots of information in a short amount of time. Everybody is pretty excited about that. It's a great way, and if you don't know the teacher, it's a great way with a small investment to get to know an instructor before you invest in a full class for next time. So virtuallyovercrafting.com, and that's it. I will see you guys on Friday. Have a good one, everybody.